on this. All right, g'day everyone, and welcome to another little interview with a health leader. Well, no, I'll give you an introduction, Steve, and you tell me whether I did it justice or not. But today we've got Steve. We've got Steve, who's the National Health and Wellbeing Manager for Healthwise Global. If you're not familiar with them, they look after Flight Centre as their main client, and Flight Centre kicked it off. But they also look after other corporations, large and small, with everything around health and wellbeing. So also proud dad to Finley, would have to say. Proud hubby to Anna. And I put you down, mate. This is when you might have to fact check me here, but I've put you down as a football player and an occasional long distance runner. So, mate, how did I go in the intro? Have I described you well?
Yes, I think you described the Steve Cormack of maybe 20 years ago, with the exception of obviously the proud father and proud husband. But still hanging in there with the football. But a bit of a background in running as well, which is falling off a little bit because football and running kind of don't always complement each other.
Yes, it is a tough one. Long distance running and keeping your zip in football. Not a great match, always.
That's it.
Yeah, very good. Mate, look, I thank you for your time. I know how busy you are. You've actually jumped out of a meeting that's still ongoing to do this for us, so we're lucky to have you. And I think the key insights that we'd love to get from your brain is, health and wellbeing on a macro level. So I thought the thing that might be nice to ask is just giving us some insight really into what do you do as a health and wellbeing manager of not only a large corporation, Flight Centre, but giving advice to other large corporations. Like what does a day-to-day look like for Steve as a health and wellbeing manager at a national level as well? Sorry if I haven't mentioned that before.
No, it's I guess it's like, I can't speak to obviously other organizations, but myself, having worked for the Healthwise and within the Flight Centre travel group for the last 20 years, it really has evolved, as has the well-being side of things within organizations, which I can touch on. But my role has evolved as well. And then obviously COVID hit and we kind of went back about 50 steps. So at the moment, my key responsibilities are looking after the gym within the Sydney office. So, that has its operational duties, but really the fundamental part of my role is understanding the well-being within, I guess, Flight Centre Travel Group as an organization. And what that involves is, I guess, meeting with senior leaders, but also meeting with other people within the business as well, to look at what are the issues, what are the risks, helping to identify the risks. So it's almost like a bit of a continuous improvement process where, you've got your strategies in place, and then you're looking back to see what are the risks, where can efficiencies be created, because well-being is, it's very fluid, and people's well-being is going to ebb and flow. It's about kind of always looking at, what's happening within the business, speaking to leaders, looking at opportunities, and putting strategies in place into terms of how we could potentially overcome those, threats to the organization and to individual well-being as well. So a day-to-day really is about kind of research, development, meetings to, like I said, identify those gaps and opportunities. And with the research and development piece, that is very much so about keeping your head across, what's going on within well-being, occupational well-being, but also looking at other organizations and what they're doing, what they're having success with, and maybe not having so much success with, and learning from them as well.
Yeah, mate, awesome. And if I can dive into that, you said, we're discussing issues, we're looking at potential risks, and then you're looking at opportunities to really take advantage and obviously improve the health and well-being of organisation. What are some of those specifics that you look into, or maybe an example? So like an issue that you could pour some light on or bring some attention to, an issue that you could see from listening to business leaders that you could see as being a bigger risk, what those things might be, and then what are some of the opportunities, or what are some of the initiatives that you put in place to stratify or minimize those things? What are the things you
Yeah. Look, I guess we're talking about currently, because like I said, well-being really does ebb and flow at an individual level, at a we level, if you like. So that's with the teams and, the peers that you work with in the organization, but then at an us level as well, at an organizational level, like it's always changing. So it's kind of like there's no silver bullet to, I guess, finding an initiative to address the issues that might be identified through, that continuous improvement process, like I was talking about. So it really is kind of about looking at the current situation. And I guess if we kind of look at well-being and how it's evolved over time, we could go back to, even now, I guess there's some organizations that think that well-being is taken care of through what is known as the 3Fs, and that's, fitness, flu jabs, and fruit. And typically, that can help an environment within an organization. It can help employees feel good, but it's about, making sure that employees, yes, feel good, but how do we make sure that they're functioning well? And what I mean by functioning well is that, life is full of challenges and I guess, struggles. For people, there's no getting away from that. That's life. And if anybody thinks back over the course of their life, there's going to be ups and downs. And, you'll think about, how did I deal with that situation? And maybe you didn't deal with it too well, and maybe you did. And I guess that comes down to individual resilience. And that's what I guess the realization is of organizations right now, is that it's not just about those 3Fs like I talked about. It's about gaining a deeper understanding of what well-being is and what organizations can actually be doing to support that beyond just the fitness, fruits, and flu jabs. And that evolution, I guess, is come to the point where we're looking at whole person approach. So I guess that's a real focus of ours at the moment, is not just looking at the physical health, but is actually which the physical health is really centered on, making sure people get enough sleep and making sure that people are active. I'm not going to say exercising, but people are active and that people are eating well. You've also got to look at, the occupational side of things. Are we creating an environment within our organization that's giving people a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, a sense of connection within the workplace? Because that goes towards that whole person approach. And then, even to the social and the connection side of things with regards to well-being as well. So it really has evolved, or that's an evolution I've seen through organizational well-being, is kind of that responsibility. And it's not even a responsibility. I think there's so much research being done that there's a need for organizations to take action on this. But then coming out the other side of COVID, what I'm also seeing as well is that there's this expectation from employees that the organization should be doing this. And talent is quite scarce across some industries at the moment. So organizations are really having to stand up and meet that expectation that's coming from employees and make sure that they're looking at this whole person approach to well-being. Not sure if that answered your question.
Mate, geez,
dig in if you need to.
Mate, I think it answers a lot of questions for a lot of people, but it probably spawns another 10, 20. It's brilliant. My mind was just sort of lighting up. But I mean, what I could take from that, it particularly is like, I remember reading something in my readings about, education starts at the home, and then it sort of transfers into school or formal learnings and continued education if you do that. But oftentimes it's been too missed that on a level there is a responsibility of or employers or a workplace that becomes that next key part of learning and development, which the trials and tribulations of life, of maybe having young kids or going through relationship troubles or aging and physical health changing and whatnot. But I really like how you speak to the organizations who take that on to teach resilience, or just to develop people to better handle some of these things, because it does serve as an educational institution, either directly or indirectly, doesn't it?
Yeah, Absolutely. Like, and I mean, when we're talking about well-being, like I think I've touched on it already. So apologies for waffling, but there is no silver bullet, and we're all ultimately going to face challenges and struggles. So it's about like when I guess looking at like workplace health at the moment and the kind of real topics of conversation, there is a real conversation within the well-being space around how do we help people thrive even in the face of struggle and challenge. So it's kind of like, well, there's not kind of one or the other. Yes, people can be at the languishing end of the spectrum, or they can be at the flourishing end of the spectrum, but it's important to realize that people are going to go up and down that. So it's not necessarily about how do we get people to that flourishing level. It's about how do we care? Like, what strategies do we have in place to help care for people's well-being, to make sure that, when they maybe are down the bottom end of the spectrum, that they're able to dig into a toolbox that they can use, whether that be, resources that, we're pushing out in terms of sleep and how to get better sleep and how to become more active, or it might be, like I said, using that we level again and that connection. So that's, within your teams, within the peers, within the organization, how can they help me as an individual get back to that flourishing state? And then looking at the organization as well and going, right, well, how can the organization help me? How are they helping to protect and to promote well-being? What can they do for me? So it really is a shared responsibility at that kind of us, we, and me level when it comes to well-being within the workplace.
Yeah, I love it. Steve, what are your current affairs? What are you seeing on macro levels? Like what are organizations seeing? What are organizations talking about? What are organizations who are proactive in the health and well-being space? What are they trying to support their team members through at the moment? What's high on the agendas, if there is something that's a bit universal?
Yeah, look, it is. I guess it is difficult because, like, it really is. Every organization is going to face different challenges. At the moment within our industry, I think going through COVID, it can't be any secret that the travel industry was hit very, very hard, and so we lost a lot of really, really talented resources, people resources, and so now that travel is coming back, it's how do we get resources like that back and make sure that people are able to support each other, because business has gone up, say 300%, for example, and then we've got all our people trying to meet that demand. So it's kind of like, how do we ensure that we've got the well-being there for our people when they're under so much pressure? And I guess when we can talk, if we talk to strategies across organizations as a whole, I think we can really say that one of the key strategies is leadership when it comes to well-being. So, and what I mean by that, like, is because if we were promoting the physical side of health and making sure that people are getting enough sleep and active and all that kind of stuff, like I said, that's all good and well. But if there's an environment at work that's counteractive to that and is almost a little bit toxic, then that is just going to push against, I guess, that those actions that the people are taking at an individual level. So it's kind of like, well, how do we make sure that we're complementing that at the we and the us level? And that, for me, for us at the moment, really is around making sure that we've got our capable leaders, and is making sure that we've got programs in place to upskill emerging leaders and practicing leaders, so that they are creating the environments of well-being within the workplace that's not going to be counteractive to the things that people might be doing individually to look after their well-being.
Yeah, wonderful. Mate, I think you may have answered it in there already, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, because I wonder if there's more in it, because you talked about supporting people all the way through spectrums of flourishing to languishing, or languishing to flourishing, whichever way you might look at it. And you're talking about supporting people, teaching leadership, having emerging leadership programs and whatnot. In your mind, and you also talked about continuous improvement, continuous learning. In your mind, what is an ideal setup for an organization? Or, it sounds like you really got a strong focus on Flight Centre at the moment. What is an ideal setup for a healthy workplace that looks after people's well-being? What are some of the key things that make it an idyllic place to work in, an idyllic environment?
Yeah, look, I think like leadership is key. It is absolutely key. You know, it's that I guess you've maybe heard the term psychological safety, but you know, for people to have that sense of belonging and have that sense of connection and find meaning and purpose in their work, it has to be somewhere, an environment that they're going to that they feel safe to speak up and to share their ideas without being judged. And you know, I feel that that is so important, and that all comes back to the leadership piece of the leader being able to create that kind of environment. But in addition to that, I mean, I guess as an organization as a whole, I mean, like I said, every organization is different. So in terms of key strategies that might fit in to one organization might not necessarily work for another. And that's where it comes back to when you're creating a well-being strategy, it really has to be about going back to the basics and identifying the needs and what are the issues, gaps, and opportunities, and then creating a strategy around that specific for your organization. But when you're actually looking at, right, what is a healthy workplace and what's not a healthy workplace, I think when you look at the environment that's being created and the initiatives that have been put in place, and they should really be number one around protecting well-being, protecting the health and well-being of employees, and that extends to the physical and the psychological safety of employees. And as a side note to that, within Australia, I think it's important to recognise how seriously this has been taken, and that there's a new standard. It's a international standard, which is 45003, if you want to look it up. And that is all about an organization's responsibility around psychological safety within the workplace. And that speaks to making sure that, you know, people are very clear on what their role is, and, you know, their expectations of them, etc., so that, you know, they do have that sense of belonging and meaning and purpose and everything within their workplace. So it comes down to that protection, like I said, but it comes down to the promotion as well. So that's, you know, where businesses like Healthwise, I guess, come into their own, and making sure that there are initiatives that are going out there, educational pieces around, like, you know, activity, how to get more activity in your day, the kind of food you should be eating, etc. But it's also about engaging people in challenges like that we do, which are like our 8-week challenges, or step challenges, etc. So real call to actions. So it's that protection, that promotion through those things that I've just mentioned, but it's also, again, going back to that leadership piece, is engaging leaders in the conversation and making the organization a place where well-being is spoken about without being judged. And I guess what I'm talking to here really is mental health, is reducing the stigma. It's a big goal of ours at the moment, is to reduce the stigma within organizations with regards to mental health, and making it a conversation that we can have just as much as, you know, somebody might say, I can't come to work today because, you know, I've got the cold or I've broken my arm. There needs to be that open conversation around, you know, I'm not up to work today because of, you know, a specific mental health condition or mental illness, or even signs or symptoms of that. Because the earlier you can intervene in that, then the you know, the quicker it speeds up that recovery.
Yeah. Wow. I was thinking for a moment in there when you were talking about health and well-being coming from the 3 Fs, and I think some people think the health and well-being can be some of the things that you're even saying in there, like 8-week challenges, or we've got a gym, or we get a discount to that gym, and it's sometimes I get an email once a month. But I think when you're talking about what it means is belonging, connection, people finding purpose in their work, like it's, you know, that's pretty amazing how far it's come. I know we're running short on time now, but I know that you an extensive reader, and I know you get so many insights from so many great books. So I was just thinking, you know, particularly around that point, I think building belonging, building connection, building people finding purpose, like in an organizational level. Is there any books that, you know, are really fundamental, some of the ideas that you're raising or that you already have up there? Maybe that's one book for Steve, and then the second book is what are you reading currently? I'd love to hear I always like to know what you're reading at the moment.
Yeah, look, you and I always share like our, I guess, our best reads with regards to, you know, our professional and personal interests. And I think, like, we've not really spoken a while about this, but I think my I guess, sources of inspiration or education have kind of changed a little bit away from books I'm still reading. And let's address that first. So the book I'm reading at the moment is called Atomic Habits, which a lot of people will probably heard of. And Atomic Habits, the concept being is just the small changes that you make, how they can lead to long-term gain. So that's a great book. I'm really enjoying that at the moment. In terms of good books that I've read in the past, I mean, again, a lot of your listeners, viewers might have read Jim Collins, which is Good to Great, Great by Choice. But really, my sources of information at the moment, as much as I'm reading Atomic Habits, in terms of the, I guess, inspiration and education I'm getting from what we've been speaking to around the belonging and the meaning and the purpose, etc., it really is from podcasts. And some of the best podcasts I listen to, I mean, there's one that's called Work Life by Adam Grant. And then the other one is the Wellbeing Lab, the Wellbeing Positive Psychology Lab. I think it's Michelle McQuaid. So she touches really well specifically on positive psychology, how it sits within the workplace, and a lot of really good insights into kind of strategies and initiatives and programs that can be run in that space.
Mate, brilliant. I've taken an extra minute of your meeting that you've got to jump into, but thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it and all the insights you have. There's a lot going on in that brain of yours, and I really appreciate that you could share some of it with us today.
No, I really appreciate you making the time to have me. It's been great to chat, and yeah, love to catch up again at some point.
Beauty. I imagine we will be. Thank you.